undefined as a data type in JavaScript. A variable without a value has the value undefined. So when you have a variable that does not have any value, maybe you declare a variable and you didn't assign any value to it, by default, it will have that undefined as the variable. So let's take a look at an example of how undefined works in JavaScript. Undefined data type. Undefined data type in JavaScript. So let's say I have a variable like this. Let's car. By default, this will have a value of undefined. Now, how do I know? Let's check the type of this variable to know, to check if its value is undefined. Type of car. And now see this. Now, because this has no value, by default, it will carry this undefined as its default value. And now, if you check the type of, it is also undefined, which means that an undefined has a type of undefined and also a value of undefined by default. Now, any variable can be empty by setting the value to undefined. The type will also be undefined. So if you set this to this, car equals to, let me say Toyota. Now I've given this a value, right? And now I can say, okay, I want this value now to be by reassigning a value to it undefined. If you check this now, look at this. If I just add something here, I'll say value of car is car. And then once I add this, we can do another one and say the type of car is type of car. You can see the value of car is undefined, the type of car is undefined. So how did I come about this two value? Look at it. It initially had a value, but then when I reassign value, I change this to undefined, and that is why undefined is shown here. And the type of an undefined variable is also undefined. So that is why we are getting two undefined. Let's move on and look at empty values in JavaScript data type. An empty value has nothing to do with undefined. So when you have an empty value in your variable, it has nothing to do with undefined. An empty string has both a legal value and a type. So let's look at how an empty values work in JavaScript. What does an empty value mean? So instead of having a variable like this, I'll say let's car, which have a value of undefined, can give an empty value, this double colon. So this double colon will signify that it has an empty value, which is not the same as undefined, because an empty string has both a legal value and a string. Now let's check the value and its type now. So one dot now HTML equals to the value is then plus car plus road, yeah, plus the type is was type of car. And now look at this. The value is what? It's showing empty because it has an empty value. But that empty is different from undefined, it's not undefined. So that's why it's showing empty. If it was undefined, it will show undefined here. And then you can see the type of an empty value is a string and not undefined, unlike the previous example. So this represents an empty value, but the type of is a string, as you can see. Let's move on and talk about data type none. In JavaScript, a variable and an expression can obtain the data type none in several ways. So let's look at how a variable and an expression can obtain the data type none in JavaScript. So if I have a variable and set its value to none, so by the time I try to get this out and display it dot get element by ID, say okay, type of car. You can see this is returning an object. So this is one of the way by which a variable expression can get the null data type, which happens to be an object. As you can see that null value is what is set for the variable that we are trying to check the type of in our display value. So this is how you can this is how a variable and expression can obtain that data type null in JavaScript. Now there are things to know. The type of operator returns object for none. As you can see that the type of operator returns none for it returns object for none. And it is an historical quirk in JavaScript and does not indicate that none is an object. So, there's nothing that is perfect in this life. So it's just one of the quirk in the language. And that is why you are saying it's typed as an object. Now, the strict equality operator compares both the value and the type of the operand. It returns true only if both the operand values and types are none. The loose equality, which is double equals to, also returns true for a non-value, but it also returns true if the value is undefined. Using double equal sign is not recommended when checking for none. So these are the things to note about this particular data type in JavaScript.